9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, bottom time.
Elon Musk wants to move 1 million people to another planet. Not as a dream, not as a movie, but as a deadline.
We're throttling back up to full power as we're through max Q.
Copy 1 Bravo.
He has said he wants a self-sustaining city on Mars within our lifetime, and he is building the largest rocket ever made to do it. It is called Starship. It stands taller than the Statue of Liberty, and when all of its engines light at once, it produces almost twice the thrust of the Saturn V that took men to the moon. Musk says that if humanity stays on one planet, a single disaster could end us forever, so we have to become a multi-planet species. It sounds like science fiction. But this man already landed rockets that everyone said could not be landed, and already flies more missions to space than every country on Earth combined. So the real question is not whether he is serious. He is deadly serious. The question is whether it is even possible, or whether he is about to spend a fortune chasing a world that will kill anything we send to it. Because Mars is not a backup Earth. It is a frozen, airless, radiation-soaked desert where the soil is poison and the nearest help is months away. This is the story of the most ambitious plan in human history, and the brutal reasons it might fail. To understand the Mars obsession, you have to go back to 2002. Musk had just sold his stake in PayPal and was suddenly rich. Instead of retiring, he tried to buy a rocket from Russia to send a greenhouse to Mars, just to reignite public interest in space. The Russians laughed at him and, by his own account, spat on him. On the flight home, he did the math and realized rockets were absurdly expensive for one reason. Everybody threw them away after a single launch. Imagine burning a brand new airplane after one flight. So he founded SpaceX with a wild idea, to build a rocket you could fly, land, and fly again. Almost nobody believed it. The first 3 launches of his small Falcon 1 rocket all failed and exploded. Musk was pouring the last of his fortune into it while Tesla was also nearly bankrupt. He later said he had money for one more attempt, and that was it. In 2008, the 4th launch reached orbit. It saved the company. From that near-death moment, SpaceX went on to build the Falcon 9, the workhorse that now lands its boosters upright on floating platforms at sea, something engineers had called impossible. But every rocket, every landing, every contract with NASA was never the real goal. They were all just steps. Musk has said it plainly. The entire point of SpaceX, from day one, was always Mars. So how do you actually move 1 million people to Mars? Musk's answer is brutal in its simplicity. You make space travel cheap, and you do that by making the rocket fully reusable, like an airliner. That is what Starship is. Top are designed to launch, return, and fly again within hours. If it works, the cost of reaching orbit could drop 100 times over. Starship is built not from expensive carbon fiber, but from cheap stainless steel, the kind used in kitchens, because it is strong, tolerates extreme heat, and costs almost nothing by comparison. Its engines, called Raptors, burn methane, and that choice is deliberate. Methane can, in theory, be manufactured on Mars itself from the planet's air and ice, so a ship could refuel for the trip home. To reach Mars, a Starship launches, then is refueled in orbit by other starships acting as tankers, then fires its engines for a journey of around 6 months. The whole system is being built at a site in South Texas called Starbase, a company town that Musk has turned into a rocket factory rising out of the marshland. Prototype after prototype has been built, flown, and often blown up on purpose to learn. The philosophy is radical. Build fast, fail fast, fix fast. It is the opposite of how NASA works, and it is exactly why SpaceX moves at a speed that terrifies its rivals. But here is where the dream slams into reality. The first wall is money. Building a city on Mars is not a billion-dollar project. Analysts estimate it could cost hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars, over decades. SpaceX funds Starship partly by launching satellites for its Starlink internet network, which is now its cash machine. But even that may not be enough for a real Mars city, and Musk has admitted he may not live to see it finished. The second wall is time. Musk is famous for deadlines he misses. He once suggested humans could land on Mars by the mid-2020s. That timeline has slipped again and again. Starship itself has spent years in a violent cycle of test flights, many ending in spectacular explosions over the Gulf. Each failure is framed as data, and progress is real, but the gap between a test rocket blowing up and a ship safely carrying humans across deep space is enormous. And even if the rocket works perfectly, it solves only the easy part, which is getting there. It does almost nothing to solve the part that actually kills you. Keeping fragile human bodies alive, on a poisonous world, with no air to breathe and radiation pouring down from the sky. Start with the journey itself. To reach Mars, humans have to survive around 6 months sealed inside a metal can, hurtling through deep space. Out there, beyond Earth's protective magnetic field, the human body starts to break down. In zero gravity, muscles waste away and bones lose density month after month. Astronauts on the space station exercise for hours a day just to slow it down, and they still come back weak. Then there is radiation. Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field shield us from a constant storm of cosmic rays and solar particles. On the trip to Mars, there is no shield. Studies suggest the radiation dose could dramatically raise the risk of cancer and damage the brain and heart. A single large solar flare at the wrong moment could be lethal to an unshielded crew. And if something goes wrong, there is no coming back. On the way to the Moon, Apollo 13 limped home in days. On the way to Mars, you cannot turn around. There is no rescue mission. Help is not hours away, it is months away, across tens of millions of miles of vacuum. Every problem, medical, mechanical, psychological, has to be solved by the crew alone, in a tiny space, knowing that a single serious mistake means everyone dies. And that is before they even land. And Mars itself may be the most hostile place humans have ever tried to reach. Forget the warm red deserts you see in movies. The average temperature is around -60 degrees Celsius, colder than Antarctica in winter. The atmosphere is barely there, less than 1% as thick as Earth's, and it is almost entirely carbon dioxide. Step outside without a pressurized suit and the near vacuum would kill you in moments. There is no oxygen to breathe, anywhere. The soil, called regolith, is laced with chemicals called perchlorates that are toxic to humans, so you cannot simply grow crops in it. Massive dust storms can rise up and blanket the entire planet for weeks, blotting out the sun that solar panels would depend on. And because Mars lost its magnetic field billions of years ago, radiation constantly rains down on the surface too. To survive, the first settlers would not stroll around a red landscape. They would live sealed inside pressurized habitats, or even underground, rationing air, water, and power, one equipment failure away from death, every single day. People dream of terraforming Mars, warming it up to breathe freely. But with today's technology, that is closer to fantasy than plan. It would take centuries, and resources we do not remotely have. So is this whole thing madness? Plenty of serious scientists think a self-sustaining Mars city, on Musk's timeline, is wildly unrealistic. They argue the money, the biology, and the sheer hostility of Mars make it a distraction from protecting the one planet we know can support us. And yet, look at the track record. When Musk said he would build an electric car company, they laughed. When he said he would land and reuse rockets, engineers called it impossible. Then the boosters started landing, upright, again and again, until it became routine. In recent test flights, the giant Starship booster flew to the edge of space and was caught out of the air by two mechanical arms on the launch tower, a maneuver that looked like pure science fiction. Every explosion along the way was followed by a version that flew further. This is the pattern of his entire career. Promise something absurd, miss the deadline badly, and then, years late, actually do a version of it. Mars may follow the same script. Maybe the million-person city never arrives. But a handful of humans setting foot on Mars, carried by a rocket built in a Texas marsh, no longer looks impossible. It looks like a question of when, and of how many will die trying. So why does he really do it? Strip away the rockets and the deadlines, and Musk's argument comes down to a single, haunting idea. For all of history, life on Earth has been a single point of failure. One asteroid, one war, one catastrophe we do not see coming, and the entire story of humanity, every book, every song, every person who ever lived, could simply end. Becoming multiplanetary, in his view, is like a backup drive for consciousness itself. Mars does not have to be paradise. It just has to be a second place where the flame keeps burning if the first one goes out. You can believe that is visionary, or you can believe it is one man's expensive obsession pulling money and talent away from the planet that actually needs saving. Both things might be true at once. What is not in doubt is that, right now, in a stretch of Texas swamp, the biggest rocket ever built is rising, aimed at a frozen world tens of millions of miles away, driven by a belief that humanity's future cannot fit on one planet. Whether that is the next giant leap or the greatest folly of our age, we are going to find out in our lifetime. So what do you think? Is Mars humanity's insurance policy, or a billionaire's fantasy? Tell me below, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.